Good afternoon and welcome to the OPEA Lunch and Learn today. Today we're talking about long-term care 201. The other conversation, really kind of couching this in terms of, can you afford to take time off of your job to take care of moms? We're going to talk about some solutions that could be out there for you. Before we do that, just a couple of quick housekeeping details. All participants are in our listen-only mode, and that means if you've got questions, feel free to drop those in the chat or into the Q&A feature, and we'll be able to answer those questions throughout periodically. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. We're joined by Chanson Flick from OPEA. He is your Government Relations Coordinator. He's going to share with us just a moment some of the latest bills that have come up and things that you need to look out for. And then as always, we're joined by my co-host, David Moritz, who is our leader up in the Oklahoma area and his team all across the state there. So we are recording this session for viewing later on the OPEA website. That is an opportunity for you to share with your coworkers and help them learn what OPEA is doing on your behalf. So Chanson, there are a lot of legislative bills that came flying in here at the last minute. So tell us what's going on and some things that our members need to pay attention to.
Yeah, that was, thank you, John. Yeah, absolutely. We have reached the point in the legislative session that was technically legislative halftime. That means that all of the House measures have until the end of the day. It's Thursday, the 24th of March. They have until the close of business today at the legislature to have passed their respective chambers. So House bills have to pass out of the House, Senate bills have to pass out of the Senate. And then starting next week, the Senate will start hearing House measures and the House will start hearing Senate measures. So a lot of really big issues going on this year with it being an election year. Some of the big issues that we've seen that are not directly related to OPEA, school vouchers, education issues are also always pretty big every year, but going into an election year, even more so. A lot of reforms related to our newly established medical marijuana industry. That's relating from everything from licensing down to individual points of sale. So there's lots of different legislation running on that. And just the usual election year shenanigans where anybody that's up there is running a bill that's going to try to make them look good for their constituency back home. So directly related to OPEA and state employment, we have got our legislative agenda that we've been advancing going forward here. And just going through the slides here, I'm going to mention some of the key highlights, but please, if you have any questions, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. Please reach out to me at any time. I can go ahead and fill you in on any one of these, or if it's one that I happen to skip over, or if there's a particular piece of legislation that's not here that you need more information on, I'd be more than glad to go ahead and look that up for you. But I also need to go ahead and drop the standard pitch on everything. If you're not a member of OPEA, we would love to have you on board. Easiest way to join right away is just via the website, opea.org. Hit the join now button up in the top right hand corner and we'll get you set up and ready to rock and roll. So, but kind of running through some of the big issues we've had right here, just on the first page right here. House Bill 3320, this is going to establish a pilot program to get you some additional benefits, namely a couple of nights at a reduced rate at staying at state parks and lodges. We're doing this as a pilot program to see how much traction we get over the next couple of years. But we hope to make this a permanent benefit for all state employees once we kind of get going forward with it. House Bill 3420, this is kind of a follow-up to what we did with the civil service reform legislation of last year. This is just making sure that the rest of state law is matching up with what the new system actually has in place, where we have 95% of all employees having job protections in place right now. This is just kind of cleanup language following that. Now, 3422, this is part of what we're really pushing forward going on as an overall compensation philosophy for state employees. Namely, we want to try to go ahead and make sure that hard to fill positions are being addressed and we're keeping salaries based very close to market. What we'd really like to see is having all state employees earning close to 90% of what they'd would be making in the private sector. So that legislation is going forward and establishing a task force and the studies that are going to be needed to make that move going forward. So if we go ahead and grab that next slide there, John. Let's see here. House Bill 4118. This is specifically related to our members that are court reporters, especially since we've had some recent changes in Supreme Court cases at the federal level. The tribal federal courts have been offering much higher pay rates for court reporters, and we have been losing out at the state level on those. So we're trying to make sure that their salaries are staying competitive with that. So those hard to fill positions are staying filled in. House Bill 4123, this is specifically relating back to retirees. This shortens up the time frame that is required that you be out of the workforce before you can come back in. It used to be that was a full year. Now we're trying to shorten that down to 6 months. So if you retire and then decide that your agency reaches out to you about, hey, we've got some positions that are hard to fill, we'd like you to come back, this will give you the option to do so at a much faster rate. House Bill 4190. This is something that we're really, we copied off of what our friends down there in Texas have actually done on this, and that's creating a floating holiday. This would basically allow you 1 day a year where you have a fixed number of days you can take off. Namely, that's going to be your birthday, Indigenous Peoples Day, Statehood Day, Juneteenth, Good Friday, and I believe there's a couple others on there. But you just give your supervisor a couple of weeks notice and you can take off on those days, just any year that we're running through. Kind of moving on a little further right there, Senate Bill 1136 would make assault on a DHS employee that's on duty a felony charge right now. Currently, that's just a misdemeanor. And this is really a first step in trying to increase protections for our employees that are actually out doing field work. And most people don't realize, especially those DHS workers, are having to deal with dangerous situations that law enforcement usually goes in very armed and ready. And most of the time, that's not the case with our DHS workers. So we want to make sure that they're getting some added protections in place. Let's go ahead and see if we can move on to the next one. Last couple right here. Yeah, these ones right here, we're not all that terribly worried about on these. Do we have another slide on there, John, or is that the last?
That's the last one we've got.
Okay, yeah. Some of these are just bills that we're tracking right now just to keep an eye on them in case they have some changes later. Prime example is that 1632 right there. That was previously some language that we were a little bit worried about with civil service reform, but it's actually, they amended that yesterday and changed everything out. So it's just keeping an eye on it to make sure that nothing shady happens.
Okay.
So that's kind of the full rundown of the issues that OPEA is working on for this legislative session right now. And as I mentioned, we're in halftime. If you need more information about any of these or any other legislation, please contact me. But the best way to actually stay up to date on everything is to make sure that you're a member. Once you're signed up, you will be getting regular contact from us, especially regarding our priority legislation. And it also gives you the ability, once you're a member, to go ahead and start proposing legislation. You can go ahead and start pitching ideas of what we can do to help improve your experience working for the state. Great. So that's kind of my full rundown there, John.
All right, thank you, Chance. I appreciate that. Again, if that's not a strong enough membership pitch to those of you who are watching this video that do not have membership in OPEA, you have a voice and you can keep in contact with the OPEA staff and Chanson to find out those bills that could impact you, not only pay, retirement benefits, health on the job, safety on the job, things like that. That's what OPEA does on your behalf. And then whenever you partner up with AMBA, and I work with AMBA, Association Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston. However, I work for the state of Oklahoma as well as for the state of Texas, and making sure that you have access to your benefits. And OPEA continues to make sure that you have access to your benefits. They're looking out for your pension, for your pay raises, your benefits. Chanson talked a little bit about some of the studies to make sure that pay is competitive, keeping you connected all throughout the state of Oklahoma to your fellow coworkers, to people who are like-minded across the state, and then finding those extra benefits and discounts that are exclusive to OPEA members, making your membership even more valuable that you have out there. At AMBA, we serve members all across the country who are in public service roles just like yours. And our leader in Oklahoma is David Moritz. He and his family live in the state of Oklahoma, in Edmond, and he and his team are scattered throughout the state. And their goal is to help you with your OPEA benefits and help you understand what you have as part of your membership benefits. And by having OPEA and AMBA together, we can fill those gaps with things that your state benefits don't provide. The benefits are also portable. Whenever you leave state employment, whether it be for retirement or you go to the private sector or somewhere else, you can take those benefits with you. And then one of the main reasons why people will like to extend their benefits or receive benefits from OPEA is because they can extend those benefits to their family members who have maybe aged out of their state benefits, or for family members who are never eligible, like their parents. You can help plan properly for your parents and prevent you from having to take extended time off for your parents. And that's kind of what our conversation is about today. Our conversation is about how to take care of your parents or yourself through long-term care, this concept of home health care. If you joined us earlier in the month, we kind of talked about the basics of long-term care. We're going to get a little bit deeper in here, explore how long-term care works, some of the options that are out there, help you understand what the current environment is, what the state provides for you, what the state doesn't provide for you, or Medicare does or doesn't provide for you or your parents as well. Kind of cover those myths and things of that nature and help you make the most of your endorsed options. And then we'll ask along the way for David to chime in and kind of share some of his thoughts as well. Every year when you have your open enrollment period, you have the ability to sign up for a wide variety of different plans for health, dental, life, and vision. State requires you to take some of these coverages, especially for you, maybe not for your family members, things like that. One thing that you'll notice that is not part of your state benefit package is the ability to purchase some form of extended care that goes beyond your care or your disability that you may have from the state. And we saw many states across the country, many districts, many counties, many businesses offer long-term care coverage back in the 90s up to early 2000 in a group format or in an individual setting, to where you have the ability to take care of those needs for yourself or maybe for a parent in the case that you needed that care. Well, as those policy counts went up, as people started taking those, insurance companies said, you know what? Our expenses are getting too high. We can no longer afford to keep these policies. And so we're not going to sell any new ones. So early 2000s roll around, companies stopped selling, states stopped offering it because it became very expensive. Premiums started to go up, underwriting got tighter, it got much harder to qualify for. So you saw a subsequent significant decline in the number of people who took out long-term care policies, either through work or individually. But what didn't change are some of the reasons why people need long-term care. The good news is, in this world today, advancements in diagnosis and treatment are getting people back on their feet much quicker. What used to be what we call a widowmaker heart attack or a stroke or something like that, people now recover from and are able to get back to work, are able to have a lifestyle where they're totally independent of any need for care. And life expectancies are up. And the other good news is there's many variety of options of care. If you think back to maybe when your grandparents or your parents went back and had to do some sort of care need, in the past it used to just simply be go to a nursing home. Now there are many options that are out there. We're going to talk about that as well. But on the flip side, an aging population increases the need for people or facilities to care for us. That drives up the cost. The cost of care keeps going up as a result of that. A smaller family unit reduces the care pool. I think about my grandparents. They all grew up in that Red River area on the Texas side of the Red River. They were all farmers and they had brothers and sisters, 8 to 10 on either side of the family. That's a large care pool that can take care of mom. Nowadays, families have 1, 2, 3 kids, greatly reduced care pool that's out there. Companies started changing languages in their policies or stopping policy sales whatsoever. Medicare, for all intents and purposes, got out of the insurance, the long-term care, the long-term nursing care game. They no longer cover that to any degree that's important out there. Then you had larger elimination periods. Again, it put more onus back on the back of the people who have the policy. And then all of a sudden, COVID-19 comes along, which changes up many requirements for nursing facilities, many requirements for home health aides, and that drove up the cost and the lack of access to those situations. And on the flip side, you had family members that said, I don't want mom to be in a nursing home facility. I want her to be taken care of in more of an environment I can control, maybe flus that come in, things like that. So that changed up a lot of how we take care of our elderly population today. And even though it changed how we take care of it, even though it changed what the costs were, it didn't change the need. The need is still out there for 70% of individuals who reach age 65 or older are going to have some sort of extended care needs sometime in their lifetime. Now, it may not be forever for the rest of their life. It may just mean for 3 or 4 months to get over a slip and fall or a knee replacement or a hip replacement, something like that. But the need is still there. And that's why we have this conversation. That's why OPEA puts on these lunch and learns, to make sure that you understand what's out there and what the potential pitfalls could be out there. And when we look at the cost of care in Oklahoma, it's a good news, bad news situation. The good news is it's one of the least expensive states in the country to receive long-term care. The bad news is, because we have a very rural state on the edges, for lack of a better term, sometimes where you get your care can be a little bit more difficult because there's not as many population centers to receive care. So we looked at it back in the early part of the month. You can see there for the 2 major metropolitan areas, and then a little bit further south and more rural, you can see the cost for a home health aide, someone to come out 8 hours a day to take care of you, $3,700 up to $4,700, depending upon where you live. Assisted living facility, a 1-bedroom single occupancy, anywhere up to $4,500 a month. Nursing home, semi-private room, $5,000 plus a month, up to $6,000 for a private room. So you can see the spread of costs out there. And I want you to think about this, not necessarily in terms of you, which is always important, but think about it in terms of your parents, because that's the conversation we're going to carry forward now, is having this conversation that says, can I still work and take care of mom? What would happen if I have to take off extended periods of time and take care of mom? What are the finances out there? And when you look at a historical long-term care plan, whether you have one or not, it's important to understand that to qualify for a long-term care coverage, you have to lose some activities of daily living or have a cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's or dementia. So once you have one of those, in this example we're using as a good hamburger, once you lose one of those, either a couple of activities of daily living or have a cognitive impairment, it triggers a long-term care plan to kick in and pay for your benefits. Most plans have either a pool of money or have a daily benefit amount. And that's kind of the meat. And that could be $100 to $300 a day or a pool of money. The length of coverage says we're going to pay for this many years or lifetime or until that pool of money is exhausted. The elimination period is the amount of money you have to pay out of your pocket first for your care before the policy kicks in. Many policies in the past have a 90 to 180-day elimination period, meaning that you have to pay for care, for your mother's care, for 3 months or 6 months before a policy kicks in. Then location of coverage, whether you're covered at home, whether you're covered in a nursing facility, assisted living facility spelled out in there. Then you could have some benefits on there to increase the benefit with inflation, or with a non-skilled service feature that allows someone who does not have a licensed physical therapist or nurse or something like that can come in and just take care of some light housekeeping, make sure mom's okay, not a flight risk or a wander off risk, stuff like that. And where that finds people now, and David sees this all the time with his team, is that people who took out long-term care policies in the past, be it through a state entity, be it through a private entity on their own, through a place of employment, they're seeing sizable rate increases on policies they already have in force. Or the company's coming back and saying, we're going to have to increase your premium significantly, or we could reduce your coverage for a level premium. Or they'll say, you've got a 6-month waiting period. And they're saying, gosh, now that looked good because I could keep my premiums down when we bought the policy. Now, when I look at it, that could be $30,000, $40,000 out of my pocket that I'm not prepared to spend in case of a long-term care need. Or some people find themselves saying, I took it back out 20 years ago, and that current coverage doesn't match what's out there, or the cost is so large, I can't afford it anymore. And some of those benefits may be restrictive. It may not cover me on home care, or may cover less on home care. So you may not be able to get to the coverage where you want to be. That's why David and his team are here to help review those type of plans that you have. OPEA endorses certain plans. We're going to talk about that as well. We'll give you some options because there are some options. But to understand what your options are and why it may be important for you to relook at what you may have or your parents may have, here are some stats that I want to share with you just so that you can kind of get a grasp of what the current situation is in the world of care right now. 28 months is the average time that someone spends in an assisted living facility. That's kind of that interim place before they have to go to a nursing home, where somebody comes to check in on them, maybe provide some meals for them, some light housekeeping, but about a little over 2 years. But then close to 60% of individuals who live in an assisted living facility, they transfer to a full-blown skilled nursing care facility. So it's a pretty large number of people as you start down that care continuum that are going to need some type of skilled nursing care in their lifetime there. The average time that someone stays in a nursing facility is about 2.2 years. Men will spend about 8 months on average. Women will spend about 2.5 years. In my father's case, he spent right at 20 months, so close to 2 years, a little bit longer for men. If you have a history of Alzheimer's, what we're seeing right now is that Alzheimer's patients spend up to 9 years on average in some type of a facility, simply because their body is fine. Their mind is something that needs care. They're a flight risk, they're a hurt themselves risk because they don't know where they are, things like that. But the one stat that jumps off the page, and I want you to write this down, is this 100-day situation. Almost half of individuals who go into a nursing home will spend less than 100 days in a nursing home. And that's not because they pass away. That's because Medicare does not pay for anything in a nursing home facility after 100 days. So it's important to understand what Medicare will and won't cover. And we're going to talk about some of those things as we go through here. And because the OPEA cares so much about their members and about active working state employees in Oklahoma and retirees, they want you to know that there are other options out there in the world besides long-term care. There are coverages that will address certain lengths, daily benefit amounts, elimination period, non-skilled and skilled work, as well as where you get your care. And we're going to kind of dive in real quickly and address each one of those. And then I'm going to ask David at the end, kind of some of the situations that he sees Oklahoma residents, whether they're state employees or retired or state educators, things like that, what he sees using out there as he goes through his career. Now, in today's options, we talked about that length of coverage and daily benefit amount. Many old traditional policies were very rigid in what they covered. There are new options out there that give you daily and weekly benefit options from smaller amounts to larger amounts. So it gives you the opportunity to get a benefit that you can use regardless of what Medicare does and doesn't pay, regardless of what anything else may or may have in a policy. You can use this money to use however you want to. And coverage periods start as small as 13 weeks. So think about this from the perspective of maybe mom has a long-term care plan and it has a 90-day elimination period, or 3 months or 6 months. You could buy a smaller plan that covers that first amount of period, that covers the elimination period and protects you and her. She doesn't have to spend money out of her pocket. So you get some smaller amounts of coverage there up to a year. And this is a situation we're looking at for my mother. She's 81. And we're thinking if we could get coverage for her just for a year while we took care of all of her financial affairs, got those things in order, if we could have someone just come in for a year and stay with her, then we could have that ability to make plans in the long run out there. And some of these plans have recurring benefits, which means if you have a slip and fall or a knee replacement and you have to have care for a certain period of time, and then after that, you're back up on your feet and good to go, that benefit may replace itself subject to a lifetime maximum. So there are some other options out there for you than just the traditional long-term care plan. And we talked about that elimination period. Think about that in terms of a deductible. We had a tornado that went through Oklahoma here just this week. And you think about your homeowner's insurance, you have a deductible on your home that you have to pay a certain amount of money out of your pocket first before the insurance company pays for the rest. The elimination period works the exact same way. The elimination period is the amount of money that you have to spend out of your pocket before your coverage kicks in. And that first dollar that you have to spend is always the hardest, because you've got to decide, do I take it out of emergency savings? Do I have to go to an IRA or a 403B or a 401k and pull money out or sell assets? Why do I do that? There are plans that the OPEA endorses that allow you to have a zero waiting period, meaning there's the minute you get diagnosed with a need for care, the plan can kick in and money comes to you and you don't have to worry about spending down assets out there. Other plans with certain periods, 20 days, 100 days, that allow you to have control and know what your coverage is going to be and the money that you don't have to pay out of your pocket to take care of yourself, take care of your parent. And then this final question, I don't want to send mom to a nursing home, or I don't want to go to a nursing home. And it doesn't make sense to me to work all your career and then have someone else determine where you're going to spend the final years of your life. Certain good plans that OPEA endorses, that AMBA offers, allow you to select where you want to be taken care of. Most people want to be taken care of at home. With these lump sum benefits, you can get the choice of where you want to be taken care of. You have 100% control of where you want to be taken care of, whether it's skilled nursing home, if you're skilled care, if you need someone to come take care of you and do certain physical things for you, physical therapy, wound dressing, things like that, or if it's non-skilled, if it's a dementia or an Alzheimer's related issue to where you just need someone to stay so that your mother, father, spouse is not a wander off risk or risk to hurt themselves. You've got that ability with the proper care, with a proper plan. And some of these plans even build in extra money for hospital stays, emergency room visits. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there that you can build those plans for you as well. So this is what OPEA endorses on your behalf and can provide for you, and David and his team can share with you that way. Because what boils down, this is where I want you to think about this. Most people who watch this are active state employees. We do have some retirees that join us as well, but most active state employees are working because they have to, because they need to provide for their family. They need to provide for their retirement. And then all of a sudden, something happens to mom. And they've got to think, can I afford to take off time? Well, the reality is that 73% of all long-term care is done in a home by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. What that tells me, that's son or daughter. That's somebody who has had to take off of their career to take care of mom or dad. Now, whether that's you taking care of your parents or whether that is your children taking care of you in the long run, that can stunt your earning power. That can stunt your potential for your growth in your pension, for even being eligible for a pension. Unfortunately, where David and I have seen this sometimes impact families, it impacts the family from an emotional standpoint. It could be a divorce situation because you're having to take care of a loved one, and that puts strain on the family. And that could put strain on future members of the family as well. So it's important to understand these aspects out there, because just because you may not have a need doesn't mean that you're going to not be responsible for somebody else in your family out there. And so you've got to look at it and say, can I afford to take time off for mom? As you know, as a state employee, you earn annual leave every year based on your tenure. That leave can accrue up to a very finite point. Most of the time, it's not enough if you've got to take care of mom for an extended period of time. Family Medical Leave Act does give some provisions out there for your parent. There are specific qualifications. Sometimes it may or may not qualify for that. And it's limited up to 12 weeks. And sometimes that 12 weeks is paid. Sometimes that 12 weeks is unpaid if you exhausted other means out there. So again, those type of situations make it very difficult to plan how you're going to take care of a loved one, or how your loved one's going to take care of you if something happens that way. So I'm going to ask David right now to unmute and share with us, maybe David, when you're talking with OPEA members across the state, what is their biggest concern when it comes to long-term care?
Yeah, usually, they're still working, still actively working, and may not be in that mindset yet of, I have to get this while I can still get approved medically, have to get this while I can still qualify and afford it. They're kind of in the mindset of thinking for their parents who are already at that stage. And unfortunately, it's probably too late to get them some coverage, and maybe not thinking about covering themselves. So that's what we find is kind of the number one thing, where if you're in that age range of, late 40s, 50s, and early 60s, it is the perfect time to, not just care for your parents, but look at things for yourself and take advantage of it while you still can. Because the worst thing that we run into is when someone waits too long, they can't afford it, they can't buy it, they can't qualify for it. And then there's, limited resources for us to help them at that point.
Okay. Thanks, David. He hits on a great point. So oftentimes we are concerned about the here and now, especially as active employees. We don't think about those future years. And as we get older, things that may have been easy for us to qualify now, they're not available to us in the future. And so that's why it's important. Look at what OPEA offers for you. Look at what David does for you as well, and what his team can do that. And so we run into these common concerns, and David mentioned this. We run into several different situations where people say, well, I may be too old or my parents may be too old. Some of the plans that are available, you can get up to age 89. Now, some of these may not be traditional long-term care plans, and they may be a little more restrictive, or they may have a limited coverage, but it does give you something that you can take care of your parents with that way. Some people say, well, I've got health issues that I may not qualify for traditional long-term care. Some plans are less restrictive. Again, understand what OPA is endorsed on your behalf and what's out there. And then some of you may have a long-term care plan. David and I find sometimes about 25% of the people we talk to have a plan out there, but that plan may not meet their need. They may be getting a letter in the mail that says you've got certain restrictions or certain provisions you need to exercise or you lose it. Don't cancel those policies. If your parents have something, don't cancel those policies. Even if they can't afford it, let's review it. See what options are in that policy, because you may have some provisions that provide for care even if you no longer pay for the policy. Let David and his team review that for you, because they can address those concerns for you and help you understand what's out there. Then we get this question, because especially from state active employees that talk about short-term recovery events, a knee replacement, a hip replacement, some type of shoulder surgery, where they're going to be out of pocket longer than what their medical leave pays for, or longer than what their time off is. The average length of recovery period for a knee or a hip replacement can run up to 3 months. And many of us don't have that amount of accrued leave out there. There are some plans that can help you over and above what medical coverage doesn't pay for. Pay for that lost wages, pay for some of those physical therapy things that aren't covered by your benefit plan. And so I encourage you, extended care doesn't necessarily have to mean nursing home care for your parent. It can mean extended care for you for a period of time where you're going to still get back on your feet, but you need those extra benefits, extra income to help pay for those expenses you weren't expecting out there. There are plans that can do that for you. People pay for extended care in a wide variety of ways. Unfortunately, most of them will have to take it out of their assets. They'll have to get assistance from family and friends, which may mean that they have to stop their career. Some will go into the Medicaid program. We'll talk about that in a moment. Others will buy some form of extended care coverage that prevents them from worrying about expenses and the type of care that they receive. We're going to talk just briefly about that before we wrap this up. I want to touch on Medicaid because we get a lot of questions on Medicaid. Medicaid and Medicare are two totally separate plans. Medicaid for state employees is usually not an option because your pay keeps you above the poverty line. I'm not saying you're getting rich as a state employee, but you're above the poverty line. Medicaid has some strict look back provisions. If you try to spend down assets, hide assets, sell things, get them out of your parents' name or yourself's name, that kind of stuff. Some people will talk about a Miller's trust. Most of the time, a Miller's trust means that you put all of your assets into a trust that you can't ever get access to and use that way to qualify for Medicaid. If you have a pension, you can't usually do that, so that you don't qualify that way. And then to add insult to injury on top of that, from a Medicaid perspective, the state of Oklahoma will go back and recoup from your estate or your parents' estate any expenses they spent on any Medicaid care for you if you have to qualify for Medicaid. So I don't encourage people to go that route. It's usually not easy. It's kind of a last resort, and most people don't qualify for it. There are some other provisions or unique ways that you could qualify for long-term care. I want to share a couple of them with you, and I want to give you a couple of options that were brought up to me by Oklahoma State employees. The first couple of options that are out here, one is a life insurance provision. Now, I would encourage you to have David review your state life insurance benefits, because I don't believe you have this provision in your state benefits, but there are some private life insurance that you may have outside of that has an accelerated benefit inside that allows you to take up to half of your face amount to use in a long-term care situation. So if you had a $200,000 policy and you needed long-term care, you could use up to 100,000 of that while you're living for long-term care. And then once you pass away, your beneficiaries would receive the remaining part of the policy. Most provisions are free in a policy. However, they're very restrictive to just nursing home care only, not home health care. There's another OPEA endorsed option, which is a tax deferred asset protection plan, where you can have provisions in that policy that if you need money out for long-term care, you can take it out without penalty. Or if you're starting to receive your money on a periodic basis, you can take that money, use it for long-term care. And if you have to you use it for long-term care, it will double the provision, double the payout. That's the type of plan that I have. I took an old pension plan that I had from another employer, put it into this type of plan, and it allows me, if I need long-term care, to double my payout without penalty. So it's a really neat way. Both of those are strategies that if you may have health issues or family history that would preclude you from getting long-term care, that you can use that. Others, especially state employees in Oklahoma, this is a really neat way that you can consider this. The federal government has a provision that if you have access to a health savings account where you're taking money out of your paycheck pre-tax, putting it in a health savings account that you can use for a wide variety of health things, doctor visits, co-pays, things like that. You can also use that monies that you're putting in a health savings account. You can use that to pay for the premium on a long-term care policy. So it saves you taxes up front, allows you to pay for a long-term care plan with tax-free money. So you're saving 38% right there. And the long-term care benefits are paid out tax-free. So it's really a very unique provision. It's great for state employees because you have access to a health savings account, which will allow you to set that up that way. David and his team can help you do that. Make sure that you can take advantage of that as well. And then we've got some people that say, because I've got a family history of dementia or arthritis or something like that, that I wouldn't qualify for a long-term care plan. I may want to use some lump sum money in a cancer or heart and stroke plan that I could use for long-term care. So there are other options out there. If your family history or finances preclude you from doing something, David and his team can help you understand that and take care of that. So I'm going to leave this up here, and we'll wrap up this webinar, wrap up this recording. The best way to get a hold of us is to take your smartphone, open up your camera feature, hover over that QR code, and open it up. A form will pop up. You can simply click that form. It'll get back to David or myself, and we can get back to you right away. If you don't have access during this time period to a smartphone, my email address, john.green@amba.info, is down there at the bottom, and we can take care of any question that you have. I would encourage you, have David review your plans. David, I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time and talk about what an OPEA benefits review looks like. What would somebody do if they wanted to review what their benefits through the state and OPEA look like?
Yeah, so just like this meeting, we can just real easily hop on Zoom, with you. It takes probably 15 to 20 minutes. And the more info that you have ready for us, the easier and quicker that it goes. And we just run down our list of benefits that your association has already endorsed for you, and kind of check off the ones that you do have, make a note of the ones you don't have, and then help review the policies with you that you already have. So if you have major medical health insurance, maybe you picked up a cancer policy, life insurance, long-term care, we help run through those, make sure you know what you're paying on, make sure you know how much you're paying for it, help answer questions, and just make you, help you feel better once we leave that appointment about what you have. If there's, cause for concern and what we find, we'll point that out to you. But we just simply help go over everything that you already have with you as well.
Great. Thank you, David. And this is a benefit that is provided for OPEA members. So as Chanson mentioned, if you're not an OPEA member, this is an exclusive benefit that we offer to OPEA members. So make sure you become a member of OPEA, take advantage of all the advocacy that they do on your behalf, the benefits they give you access to, as well as the support that they give you as an employee. So thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being part of OPEA. And if you need anything, again, our contact information is down there at the bottom. but have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Thank you.